speaking with Mr. Jeff Waters, the man who is Annihilator. The legendary Canadian thrashers are back with album number 15, Suicide Society, and it's one that I recently reviewed on our website. So thanks so much for taking the time today to talk with We Love Metal.
Thanks, Bill. And did you say 15 records? That's pretty ridiculous.
I think so, and that was actually my first question. This is 15. Did you have any idea? I'm sure I know the answer, but how does it feel to reach that number?
Well, I mean, myself now being 29 years old, it's quite a feat for a kid to... No, I'm just kidding. Let me see. 49 years old now. I'm going to hit the big 5-0 in February. So, yeah, I don't think when I was I'd say young kid because I was young for my age in many ways. And when I did a little demo that had a song called Alice in Hell on it and a few things like that, that was back in like 85-ish. My goal was, because I was a total metal fan. I was into the lot, hard rock, AC/DC, Kiss, all that stuff, and then Van Halen and Scorpions, and then the metal of Sabbath and Ozzy, and it came in, and then I hit this Venom, Slayer, Exodus, Anvil, Razor, Exciter, Anthrax, his first albums.
Yeah.
So I was a cross between, actually I grew up at 12 years old. I was disco era, wherever it was. It went from disco to pop to hard rock to heavy metal to thrash metal and death or speed metal, all that stuff. So all that time I liked guitar and took a bit of lessons and things like that. And so I was kind of slowly, everything I was doing in my life, besides going to school as a little kid, was music-based. And my mother saw that and got me into lessons and that. So when I finally hit the last stage of that, which was discovering the first records from those bands, Anthrax, Exodus, Razor, Anvil, Slayer, Exciter,
sure,
Metallica's, when I discovered that, it was like everything had been building. I'd had the lessons in jazz and classical for a few years, not a lot, but enough, and I had the hard rock and the Randy Rhoads and the Van Halens and the Malcolm Young rhythms and Gary Moore and all these awesome players and styles of music with melody and things like that, and training and theory and stuff like that. And then, bang, you hit that, and it all goes away and gets pushed aside, and you put a Slayer, Hell Awaits, or Haunting the Chapel shirt on. My hair grows longer. I stopped poofing my hair up. Back then you did, right? You just put the little stuff sprayed in your hair and poof it up.
Sure.
It all of a sudden became black and straight and black, and it wasn't cool to like the melodic bands anymore back then, and I would just wear my Slayer shirt and my Venom shirt. And basically, that was the beginning of Annihilator. And the funny thing is, I was into that kind of music for a couple of years. I mean, for my whole life, but I'd only been into that kind of music for a year or two, and bang, Annihilator was born. So Annihilator starts off having the more recent thrash metal influences on our first couple of records, but starts going back in time as the album's sort of, not totally back in time, but back to the more melodic and the hard rock and the heavy metal melodic stuff. So that's us basically just went right through our career on our albums, different styles. We'll go back to a style or we're unconsciously or whatever. But no, when I was in that sort of metal stage and met this guy named John Bates, who said he was a singer and lyricist, we wrote a song called Alice in Hell together. That's when I said, you know what? This is what I want to do. What is it I want? And I remember writing it down going, I want to have a record deal with a record out, and I wrote down Exodus, Metallica, like that. I wanted to be like those guys, not like, Randy Rhoads and Van Halen and all that. I passed over that stuff. I went through that phase. I was into the heavy stuff now. And I wanted to be like those guys, and I even knew at that time, despite my youth and immaturity, I was aware enough that I was never going to be as good as them, but I wanted to at least try to be like 70% as good as these bands. And I don't know why I put that number on there, but it was just, I knew I wasn't going to be as good. So I just wanted to be as good as I could towards that direction. And my only goal I had was to get that record deal. And bang, 4 record companies made offers. We signed with Roadrunner Records, put Alice in Hell out. Bang, done. 1989, first album goes through the roof in Europe and other countries and other continents. And I never had to do the struggling of jumping in the back of a van or I started, but that was before the record came out. But I never had to go through that slow build. I was always like, it just sort of just hit for us right away in many parts of the world. And that was it. I literally finished that Alice in Hell year touring around the world, being brought back to Vancouver by a big plane, and they said, okay, you're done the touring for Alice in Hell. And my manager calls me in for a meeting and goes, okay, we got to talk about what's next. And I looked at him, and I had not even thought that there was going to be a second record. No, I'm serious. I never had a goal of album 2. I thought maybe it was even over. I didn't know what was going to happen. I never even thought about it. And that became number 2 hit, and it's called Never Never Land, and it sold even more records. And Japan became big for us. And then, it just gradually just was like, holy crap, we got a second one, and it's doing better. And then the third one didn't do so well at all in North America, but it was big in Europe and big in Japan. And then we lost North America. It became a 1993, 92, 93 was, 93 was the years when essentially every record company that would send out a memo that says anything with the word metal in the biography or bio of the band, get rid of it if it's not selling huge. So that's the truth. There was memos out like that, and we were told even at Roadrunner, the third album with Roadrunner, I had this ridiculous bad deal where it was like a 5 or 7 album deal. A lot of bands got trapped in those things, and so did I. Except the label after the third one, they dropped us because they were dropping almost everybody. And the quote was, unless you'll change the name of your band and sound more like either Pantera, Sepultura, or Biohazard, we have to let you go. And I was just sitting there as a kid going, I don't want to go like them, even though they're great bands, but I can't do that. I guess I'm going to have to cut my hair and get a job. But, so what happened in the history there was I thought my career was done with Annihilator, and it was essentially pretty much done in North America. And manager said, you need to do a thing called a license deal because Japan and Europe would not want to sign you. And we went on to a 4th album with me singing called King of the Kill. And it didn't even get released in Canada, our home country, or the United States, but it became a huge success in Japan. Like, we're talking like Bon Jovi, some Bed of Roses was on the charts, and we were bumping it out with one of our ballads off that record. It was just the most ridiculous thing I'd ever, if I look back on it. It was really, really crazy. I mean, Annihilator and Bon Jovi have nothing to do with each other, and it was a very big time. I had no one would book us or sign us in North America, and yet I was with Bed of Roses and Bon Jovi on the charts in Japan. It was just ridiculous. But Europe became very big for us, and it pretty much, it's been up and down. There was a 10-year downtime from 97 to 2007, but since then it's been up and up and up, and it's just been our whole career over there. I didn't even know where I'm going with this. Stop me and ask me. Point me in the right direction now.
Hold on.
I did a whole album like that because my when I was doing this, remember I was telling you about this King of the Kill record that was Bon Jovi, blah, 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 all that crap? I did another album called Refresh the Demon after that in 95, 96, and it's a long story, but I had a kid, a son, Alex. I have a son, Alex. He's 20 now. And his mother died. I was a single parent right after he was born. His mom died of cancer.
Mm.
So I did a whole album with what just happened to you right there. I did an entire record called Refresh the Demon with that going on. The whole time I was balancing just me in the studio with my son, little baby, beside me in a little crib, and I was recording the album at super quiet volume so I wouldn't really, screw up his ears, but just so I could hear him too with a baby monitor. That was amazing.
Yeah. Well, he's a year and a half or so, and just staying with us for the week. So.
Sounds like he's going to be a singer.
Oh yeah.
A singer.
He's a good kid. Okay. You mentioned.
Yeah, you should keep that. You should keep that in, dude. You should really keep that in there. That is amazing.
Reality, right?
Yeah, that's great.
You mentioned the kind of change of styles over the years, and getting to the new album, Suicide Society seems like a pretty good mix of the older Annihilator sound and some more modern stuff. I think there are a couple songs that I said, wow, that could be on Never Neverland for sure. And I think you've answered the question, but that just seems like the way you do business, is how you write your songs.
It's kind of random. You can't sort of, if I could sit back and say, it'd be great if musicians could do this. If you could sit back and go, what was the best-selling album? Okay, that's one category. What was your favorite album? Okay, you could go to different categories. My best-selling and my favorite album are the same, called Never Neverland. Mm-hmm. And I learned very, very early on, right after that album, when I did the next record, I'd taken time writing this third album, Set the World on Fire, and I scrapped everything because I was trying to copy Never Neverland idea and the theme and the vibe. And I realized that was a place and time, and less than 0.1% of all established long-term bands out there can pull that off. I mean, Priest has done it. I mean, Priest somehow put out British Steel, Scream for Vengeance, Defenders of the Faith, Hellbent for Leather, or whatever, The Killing Machine, or whatever, Sin After Sin, Sad Wings of Destiny. Priest put out even Turbo. They put all these brutally amazing, insane records out, and Stained Class. And then all of a sudden, 14 albums into their career, they pull off Painkiller.
Right.
It's just like, are you kidding me? How many bands in the history of music have ever done 14 records and come out with one of the most groundbreaking intro songs and videos in the history of music? No one. So, AC/DC and Slayer and Maiden, and nobody's able to pull this off every time. Nobody can do that. In fact, most bands can't pull it off more than 10% of their career. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with me. I tried to go back to Never Neverland and revisit it, and I learned very early on you cannot do it again. It's done. I mean, it rarely ever happens, and don't think you're going to be one of those rare ones. It's not going to happen. So I just do what I do, and sometimes it's what's going on in my life. If my life is very good and things are going really well, it's tougher to find aggressive stuff coming out of you, but there's always stuff to find out. You're always pissed off at something. Life never works out great every day, and you know, like there's always sad things and families and deaths and illnesses in your family, or feelings that you have, or things you see in the news, or things that happen to your friends, or whatever. There's always negative things to write about, or aggressive things, or heavy stuff. Vice versa, if you're really pissed off or angry, you might come out with a Slayer-ish kind of song or something. My problem is, I want it to be like Slayer or Pantera. Like, we're talking like Pantera in the 90s, because we came out and were popular before Pantera. We were touring with them, and they were the opening act in Europe, with Judas Priest and the special guest Annihilator, and then an opening band called Pantera. Nobody knew them. But they had such an impact on me, not musically, but I wished I could come up with the aggression in music and riffing that Slayer and Pantera come up with. I try all the time just to sit down here, and I think it's heavy, and then all of a sudden I sit back and go, ha, ha, ha. Yeah, it's about 30% as heavy as that stuff. You know, you got that in you, but you're not Dime, you're not Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman, you're not Tom Araya screaming away. That's their thing. I can't pull that off. What I pull off is the combination of hard rock, heavy metal, and thrash metal as I knew it when I was growing up and up to now. And stuff comes out that might sound a little modern. Maybe it's how I'm recording it, or maybe it's something I even heard on the radio a year ago and didn't realize it. But the majority of the stuff I'm doing is just a mishmash of all the stuff that I liked. And a lot of times I have to delete when I'm writing and go, I love that riff. And then somebody around me would come down and listen to it and go, Jeff, that's track 4 off the Heaven album. It's the bridge riff, and I'm like, oh, you son of a gun. So I just do what I do. You're going to hear a lot of influences in the vocals and the music and the bass and the drums and everything. I think where Annihilator or myself have some kind of original style, not completely, where we have our at least, okay, that might be Annihilator.
Right.
European fans have said it seems to be the way I put all that stuff together is unique. So it doesn't. I'm not a groundbreaking new sound or some kind of, guy that will be remembered as the guy that did this in metal and groundbreaking this, and people follow this. It's more like, I think, it's more of a general covering 3 different styles of music, throw them into one. Whatever comes out, comes out. Sometimes it's going to be really good. Sometimes it's not that good. Sometimes it sucks. Sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes it's just in the middle, right? Just like every band.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Every song can't be, the best song on the album. So, and every album can't be the best.
Yeah, I know. It's
you've ever done.
Weird, because it's just holding on for AC/DC and Priest and Maiden. I'm really impressed with, I've been cruising, ever since I moved into this new place in May. We live outside of the city, so there's a lot of driving going on finally. For me, I used to live in the city and, like fast cars and all that, but you can't drive them fast there, and you shouldn't drive them fast outside the city, but a lot of driving going on, and I finally get to listen to, Sirius XM on my, system every day and most days, and I was very impressed by one of the main Maiden singles from the new record, and I was like, yes, this is great. This is fantastic. That sounds like Maiden. Yes. I was really pumped because us old school guys are just hoping that the older guys aren't going to disappear. We need them.
Right.
We need them to hang in for another couple of records. The Priests, the Maidens, the Slayers, AC/DC, we need them to keep the genres going until finally some people come up here and take, just be like that Slayer or that Metallica or that this or that in the early days. Not necessarily that kind of music, but just something that Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. I mean, that kind of band where it's like, wow, check this out, holy crap, and then everybody's talking about it, and everybody wants to buy it and see it and listen to it, and we're just waiting for that. We've had bands try. We've had, bands from Trivium to Bullet for My Valentine, Avenged Sevenfold, who've had tons of success and all this kind of stuff, but nobody's ever really got up there. You know what I mean? To that Maiden level or that, that level. And I heard the new Slayer record, and I was like, yes, okay, now we're here. We got Maiden with a good album. We got Slayer with a killer album. And I think it's just a matter of, I think Judas Priest need to put out the closest painkiller they can possibly come up with at this stage of their lives and careers, and that'll just really put these in the right direction.
All right. Have you heard any, you mentioned a few younger bands, but have you heard anybody that you think might be on the right track?
Well, I gave up looking. I'm just waiting for it to just show up. That's as a metal fan, not as an Annihilator guy, but as a metal fan, I'm waiting. I mean, I had the hopes, I would tour with, let's say, Trivium. 2007, we did a tour with them in Europe and the UK, and I was like, okay, well, 2007 would be quite a few years into my career, 10 albums in or whatever, and, Trivium were on their first, maybe second album or third, I can't remember, and I would, get off the bus, go in my dressing room, eat a bunch of food, and then go back out and go sightseeing or walk around the town or something, and on the way out, I would hear 2 guitar players doing these scales and doing these things, and it was Matt and oh god damn it, Heafy and Corey Bullia. Matt and Corey would be every single day. These guys, these kids, would sit there with their guitars, with their laptops, downloading or just watching YouTube videos and downloading lessons and scales and tablature or whatever, and they were learning this stuff from the 80s. Like they were talking to me about, okay, I got Chris Holmes from Wasp and Randy Rhoads and all these things, and I was starting to realize, whoa, there's some serious hope here for guitar-based metal, because guys like them and Alexi Laiho, these guys are not doing stuff that anyone can learn in 2 years. Mm-hmm. They're doing stuff that takes 8 hours a day, 7, 8, 9 years to practice to get that good. And that's when I really, mid-2005, 6, 7, that's when I start to see younger generation now picking up guitars and using the internet to find Randy Rhoads, to find Jakey Lee, to find Eddie Van Halen, to find these guys, the Gary Moores, the John Sykes, the Vives, Satriani, all these guys, and Paul Gilbert, just all this stuff. And that's when I think guitar playing came back in. We lost guitar playing from 1993. Even Metallica dropped the solos, and literally bands could be in high school and dye their hair red and jump up and down and play three chords, and that was the '90s for a lot of bands, as far as guitar playing and hard music went, but and no solos. So after a while, it was just like, here we go, we got it. Alexi, the Trivium guys, and a lot of young guitar players have mastered the art of guitar, metal playing, and went back and learned from the masters. And it's great, good time.
Yeah, it definitely is. It seems like every year there are albums that I'm going to be listening to for a long time coming out still. So yeah, that's a good thing.
I remember back to your question, which was the bands. I mean, I didn't necessarily like or listen to any of this stuff. Some of them I did, like Lamb of God, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I never really listened to Avenged Sevenfold. I just hear the odd song on the radio or Sirius XM or on tour, or somebody play me something and go, hey, check this out, or whatever. Or Bullet for My Valentine, or this and that. And I kind of thought, okay, well, regardless if it's the kind of thing I like or not so partial to, or whatever you want to call it, maybe that band has a chance to take this to another level, you know, and that band, and then you did have the Linkin Parks and the Korns, and you even had Disturbed, which is kind of electronic guitar, bass music, and they would try to go heavier, and you had all this stuff that was very big, obviously, but you didn't have the '80s stuff. You didn't have that '80s heavy metal meets thrash metal. You never had that Metallica, that Anthrax, that Slayer. You never had that again. They are out there, but there's just not the commercial market. In other words, the places to play or the labels to put the money in to develop the band like the old days.
Right.
But anyway, it all starts in the basement. It all starts. People want stuff fast. Computers. They want access to this. They want information now. They want to learn how to play in a week, not a year. They want everything now. So it's going to be very difficult to get that next Metallica. But I know we're going to get it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
I think we need it. We need that to bring the business side back to this kind of music, so that bands can actually get signed and not ripped off, and get record deals, and get labels putting money into their careers, and get people back into playing this kind of music and out there for the masses. Because obviously there's so much good music and talent in this kind of music, it just doesn't get the voice.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there are definitely some unsigned bands, even I've heard, that just they blow me away. So, metal right now seems to be making its living off of playing live, essentially, more than anything else. So, you guys are getting ready to go to Europe, I think, next week. What do you like to do?
Monday. Yep.
What do you like to do when you're in Europe besides playing for a bunch of metalheads?
You mean on days off, or if I'm over there for something, or?
Yeah, during the tour, if you have a couple hours, anything you.
Yeah, it depends. In the summer festival seasons, which, again, at any given May to August, any given weekend, you're going to have 10 to 20 festivals, all within a $200-300 plane fare distance. It's a lot different than Canada or the United States, where you have Rockstar Mayhem, or you have Heavy MTL in Montreal, and you used to have Heavy Toronto or whatever it was, and you'd have a couple more festivals in the States, and some boat cruises in the Caribbean, your Monsters Rock, 70,000 tons of metal, your Motorhead cruise, you have all that stuff. But if you go over to Europe, it's a completely different ballgame. You have so many places to play, and so many huge audiences playing the same nights all over Europe. And it goes from May until August. It's phenomenal for those of us that know about it, and amazing if you're new to this and discovering it. You have so many Canadian and American fans that just plane over to Wacken or Hellfest or Sweden Rock or something, and they're just blown away when they get there. They're like, Are you kidding me? And so when we're over there doing the festivals every summer, sometimes we have heavy schedule and sometimes it's lighter, but you always have in between the weekends. We sort of base, usually our home bases, we go back to Hanover, Germany, which is a very similar to Ottawa, Canada. It's a very quiet and old folks kind of place, and a university kind of town. But other than that, it's a pretty boring, quiet city. But it's beautiful. And then boring and quiet and beautiful is perfect for a band on their week off. Right? So we go back there. I've been going there for decades, and it's know a lot of people there, friends and record companies there, and lots of people that we know, but it's quiet. And we go back there, and that's about it. We sightsee on tour when we can on days off, but now when you're doing a tour like we're doing 2 months headlining, it's a different thing. You've got a bunch of tour buses, a whole ton of people. You got 20 crew. You got a whole bunch of stuff to do. You got interviews there. You've got any days off we have are travel days on the bus. So, and we're gigging like 5.5 gigs a week average, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no time for that stuff. So you make sure that the tour bus is a palace. You have everything nicely done
fun
over
palace.
there. So you know what? That should be above my door in the bus. My room in the bus. There you go.
It should.
I never thought of that. I never thought of that for the bus, because I've always thought about, maybe naming the studio that or something like that, but I never actually thought about that on the bus. That's a great idea.
It's a mobile fun palace.
I'm on it. Yeah, I'm on it now. I mean, they're definitely going to put a sign up.
Sorry to interrupt.
The cool times are, for me, it's going on press trips, like when you have an album coming out and they give you a week or two in Europe, because then you've got weekends where journalists aren't working and nothing's going on, and people on Fridays want to get home, so you only have early interviews on Fridays, and then Mondays people are kind of just getting back to work, so interviews usually are Tuesday to Thursday, the bulk of them, and so you really get 3-4 days where you're in different countries and cities. And what you mean? I got a day off, 2 days off in London, and they're putting me in a nice hotel, and they're giving me spending money, and I can sightsee. That's just a dream for a musician to even have that time to do that, right? So yeah, it's fun. I mean, the touring stuff's a blast. I mean, I don't know, it's a really good life. I think for me, it's just staying clean, and I quit drinking a long time ago, and I'm not a healthy guy, but I'm not an unhealthy guy. I'm right in the middle, I think, and as long as you keep your brain together and you structure your days and allow time for music, allow time for business, allow time to unwind a bit, and you can, whether you're home in the studio or on tour or doing any of this stuff, it's you can have a great time doing it,
All about balance.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned 70,000 tons and all that, but it's been a long time since you toured North America. I've seen you do some like one-off shows in your area.
Yeah.
But how does it look with the new album? Are you guys going to be able to get to the States? Or?
Essentially, when we came out in '93, and we were kind of, along with 99% of the metal bands at the time, banished from North America for a while. I thought when it came back around 2001 or 2002, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, I thought, okay, now I'll come back. Because remember, I've always had, Japan and now South America and mainly Europe have always paid the bills, and always been a matter of however much money you want to make in your personal life is how hard you want to go over there and work your butt off and do it. So it's not like I've lived a spoiled life with Annihilator, but I live a good life with it, and I've never starved. I've never had to worry about that with this band.
Mm-hmm.
So when metal seemed to be coming back, and I thought, you know what, now maybe labels might look at us because we're on our 10th album, and we're doing so well in other places. So of course they would sign us. I was reality checked and given the 3 reasons real quickly by some even friends that worked at record companies, and they said, number one, Annihilator is not really making a comeback by signing you guys because you were never really big here to start with, so it's not like a big deal for anyone. Number 2, you're not a young band, and because essentially we can't rip you off with the legality of the contract stuff, we would rather rip 5 young bands off and have a shot at one of them breaking than signing an older band like you and having to give you fair contracts, which would mean less money for the record company. And number 3 was you're not exactly a new sound or a new style coming out. In fact, when you did come out, you were a great way of putting it all together, but you were putting other styles together that had already been out there. You're not like a groundbreaking new thing like a Pantera or this kind of band. And all 3 of those reasons were right on the money. So it was a reality check to me. And I walked away thinking this would be no problem to get a small deal in Canada and the States and start doing some touring. And I was shut down. And then I thought, okay, well, how about tour agencies? If I can get out there touring, that'd be great. Not one of them was interested in booking us, but they were all very, very happy to say, hey, man, it's great that you've been doing great overseas. Congratulations. I was a big fan of Never Neverland. You know what I mean? And all the agents said that, and it was just like a second reality check of, oh, the agencies don't want us either. Okay, how about we do our own shows? Oh, that means I lose money, and I have to book it myself. I have to call up these clubs and venues and find out who books them. And I was like, I don't have time for this stuff. There's no way I can become Mr. Promoter Booker guy. And I also have to pay my band, who are hired musicians, a decent wage to go and tour with me, and that means basically I would lose a crap load of money out of my own, paying my guys and crew and transportation and food and everything to go play at a club that nobody really wants to book us in, and no label will support us, and no agency interested. So it was a reality check, and what was frustrating was I would even ended up talking to labels and hitting them a second time saying, but this Big Four band and that Big Four band just said they would take us on tour as a support act, and it was not even enough to get a deal. It was like, holy crap! But that is the reality. And also maybe another fourth reason that I could put into this is because, hey, Waters, when you back out of a territory or an area that long and you try to come back in it, a lot of people that find this out go, well, where the hell were you this whole time? Why did you not? Well, I mean, were you a snob? You don't like your own country or the States? And also, here's another one. I'll give you a fifth reason. Annihilator sometimes we have some seriously goofy, fun lyrics. Our second album, like I said, Never Neverland, was our biggest selling record, and it had a song on it called Kraft Dinner.
Sure.
About macaroni and cheese.
Yep.
We have some really goofy stuff in there, and a lot of the kids today in North America, in the States especially, are clearly more geared to, for example, a Lamb of God fan is most likely to be into very aggressive, heavy music. And it's not the same as when I was, or Europeans, or in the past, way back there in the 80s and early 90s, where you could be into Skid Row, but you could also be into Slayer. And you could be in Pantera, but you could also be into guitar-based instrumental music, or Racer X, or, Lita Ford, or, it was okay to kind of, I'm not saying it's not okay to like different styles, but I think, once in North America now, I think it's more like when you hear a band called Annihilator for the first time and you think, Annihilator, that sounds heavy. And then you listen to it and you randomly select something on YouTube and you go, this is a freaking ballad. What the hell is this fucking stuff? Or what are these guys making goofy faces for? Well, wait, this guy sounds like fucking Dave Mustaine on this part. Or what's this Iron Maiden harmony vibe? Or this, it's just sort of, to new people, North Americans, it can be like, what is this stuff? And the other side is the other half are going, wow, this is kind of neat how they mixed all this stuff together and that they've been around all this time and still doing what they love to do.
Okay, well.
But I tell you, no agents have sent me an email and said, do you want to go and put a tour together? And I tested the theory. We booked a gig in Quebec City a few years ago, and I tried to show one of the two agencies up here in Canada. I wanted to make a point, and I said, there are a lot of metalheads here in Canada, in Quebec, and there's a lot in the States, there's a lot in Western Canada. If you book us on a Canadian tour, I can guarantee you we'll sell out every venue on the tour. And they all laughed and thought it was stupid. So I said, okay, watch this. And I went and booked a show in Quebec City, and we sold 2,000 tickets in 10 minutes.
I think you do very well in the States, too. I mean, it's been so long, so.
And I would love to, except the issue I got, and a lot of fans don't get it, and I understand it, but how in the hell can I get down there on tour when I've got big bands asking me to tour with them?
Right.
But they will not bring us unless we have a label that's supporting this and promoting it and gives us the tour support, so I don't have to put in $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of my own money for the band, the crew, and the bus. So it becomes a big.
Yeah, it's financially unfeasible. So.
And you say that to the majority of metal fans, and they don't get it, and it's totally understandable. If I heard a band member say that are doing well in other parts of the world, but they don't tour in their home country or the States, and they say that, I go, BS. if you got a house and car and studio and all that stuff and all these records and royalties and all this crap you're probably getting out of the money you're getting from festivals, take your own damn money and go book a friggin' tour so that the fans can see you. And they got a point too.
Kind of frustrating, but you know. Okay. All right, Jeff. Final question for you. Our website is called We Love Metal. Why do you love metal?
Why? Why do I love metal? Oh my God! Because A, I'm a guitar player, and some of the best guitar playing ever in history has come out of metal guitar players. Right? Metal is classical, jazz, blues, goofy, simple, aggressive, punk, everything. It's everything. This Ronnie James Dio, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, ballads came out of these bands. Melodic songs, classical stuff, Randy Rhoads, innovations, Eddie Van Halen. So I think metal is, and by the way, Van Halen and AC/DC and Kiss were called heavy metal in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
In Hit Parader and Cream Magazine everywhere. So for those younger folk, those bands were called heavy metal when I grew up. And I have never really grown up, but in my thinking I was growing up days. But heavy metal from a guitar aspect, bang, that's a no-brainer why a guitar player wouldn't love metal. And just the music in general is it's just a feeling. It could be a sad feeling, a happy feeling, an angry feeling, moving feeling, a cheerful. It could mean a freaking violent feeling. It could be just letting out aggressions and feeling good about it afterwards. It can be anything.
All right. I got a sort of a similar answer, the second part of your answer there, from a fellow Canadian, Devin Townsend. Because it sums up everything that we as humans are about. Love, hate. Throw out all the emotions. It covers the gamut. So.
I was asked. Yep, and I was actually asked months ago, probably even a year ago, by a journalist in Europe. Give me, off the top of your head, Canadian musicians that come to mind as being underrated. And I know this is wrong because Rush are not underrated, but in a way they are. But I said Rush and Devin Townsend. Because, Rush are not underrated, but Rush and Devin Townsend are the true geniuses of this country. And Devin Townsend he played here in Ontario a few years ago, and I went to see him, and he played did an acoustic set, and there was like 30, 40 people. And I was like, why are there not 3,000 people here? Why are there not 5,000 people?
Yeah.
Like Bryan Adams, a genius, an unbelievable Bryan Adams, okay? He does his acoustic tour, and there are thousands of people that go to watch. And it should be that way for Devin Townsend. He's the most underrated dude ever in music out of Canada. Rush, of course, are not underrated. They are just geniuses.
Well, I think you're underrated, too, and I wish you the best, and I thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Cool, and yeah, you should keep the kid crying in there because that's awesome. That really was. Seriously, that was amazing.
All right.
That totally came out of nowhere.
Oh yeah. No, he was just sitting here and just burst out. So he probably needs.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to me babble, and good luck, and I'll see you around sometime.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.